Good afternoon and welcome to our second day of the tnAchieves 100,000 student enrolled week of celebration and panels. This afternoon, we are highlighting our Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology. I'm really excited about this panel. I think oftentimes when Tennessee Promise is making headlines and people are talking about Tennessee Promise, a lot of the focus is shifted towards our state's community colleges. And a lot of people don't even know that we have an entire system full of technical colleges, of 27 of them spread across the state, designed to be no further than 50 miles away from any resident in the state of Tennessee, and a really great point of access for a lot of students in Tennessee. I think oftentimes when we are out talking about our TCATs, unfortunately, they might be our state's best kept secret. They've got completion rates and placement rates that many of our four-year universities do not have. And so unfortunately, while overlooked, oftentimes outside of Tennessee, inside of Tennessee, we know how important our TCATs are and just how critical they are to student success and access across our state. One real quick housekeeping measure for all of our attendees today. You will notice that you are muted and that your cameras are turned off, but you are able to interact with us by using the buttons at the bottom of the screen. We are going to ask some pre-planned questions to our panel, but then we're going to turn it over to you. So the chat feature allows you to chat with our panelists and the other attendees. The Q&A feature allows you to ask questions that we will collect and then ask our panelists at the end. It's my honor today to turn it over to our moderator, Ben Sterling. Ben was a student in our first class of tnAchieves in 2009, has now been working with us on the outreach team at tnAchieves for the past 6 years. I've known Ben now for 12 years, and it's a great honor, and he's my partner in everything mentor and outreach related. Excited to turn it over to him today and to welcome our panelists. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Hey, thanks, Graham. I really appreciate that, and I feel honored to be able to moderate this panel. I told Graham and Chrissy earlier that I feel like I got the best draw being able to moderate this group. I've got a group of panelists that know each other well, that tend to work well with each other, especially in this setting. We've worked together in this setting before, so I have high hopes for this panel that it's entertaining, informative, and all of that. So before I dig into any of the questions, I'd like to do a quick introduction. We have Youlanda Jones, who is the president of 3 TCATs, TCAT Ripley, Covington, and New Bern. We've got President Cliff Wightman, and president of TCAT Crossville, and Mike Whitehead, president of TCAT Pulaski. So we've got various areas of the state represented here. Crossville could be considered East Tennessee by some folks. We've got East, Middle, and West Tennessee represented. So I'm going to dig into the first question, and this first one is for you, Youlanda. And Graham alluded to this a little bit in his introduction, but TCATs aren't always known in the community. So I want you to do just a little bit, almost define what a TCAT is and what students can learn at a TCAT.
Well, I'll be happy to do that. You know, TCATs are known to be the premier provider for technical education and training. That's what we do, and that's what we do best. We offer instructional programs that prepare students for initial employment and advancement in their chosen field or their careers. So our programs actually simulate industry and the workforce. So as he said, we have about 27 TCATs throughout this great state. Most of these TCATs also have extended campuses, and we are strategically placed to serve industry and prepare them for any jobs that are keen in a variety of workforce. So high demand jobs are what we do. And if you think about technical training, and anyone can chime in, our programs are skill-based. So you may say, what does that mean? So we, across the 27 TCATs, offer approximately about 70 different technical programs under the TCAT umbrella. So these programs can range from industrial maintenance to nursing, to cosmetology, to dental assisting, to truck driving, to HVAC, and the list goes on and on. The programs, I would say, are determined by the industries and the areas that we serve. So we are very specific, very keen, and our programs can actually change based on need and demand. So I pride myself as a president to be able to work for an institution that not only gives skill, but we also place our students upon graduation. So we are very, very excited to be on this call today to share the word about our TCAT and what we do.
Well, enthusiasm coming through loud and clear, and I certainly appreciate you for digging into that. There's actually a question later on in the program that I was going to ask, but I think it's time to ask that now, and it was directly related to how a TCAT is nimble and is able to change based on industry needs. Mike, you want to share a little bit about what that would look like in your particular community?
Sure, and that's the beauty of the TCAT system, and it's always been that way. We're excited about that. Our industry and business partners have come to depend upon us and that flexibility so that we can provide their needs. As Youlanda mentioned, there are 27 TCATs across the state. Not all of them have the same programs. We have probably a base set of programs. Most everybody probably has welding. That's one of our most popular programs. Many have HVAC, but just because we won't see those same things at Pulaski that we see at Covington, Newbern, and Ripley, because that area may need something different. Crossville, Cliff may need something different for his industries and businesses in his area. And so over time, that program listing has just evolved to meet the needs of our communities. If we have specific needs that our programs don't fully address, then we do special industry training. We put together specific training programs for industries or businesses that are short-term, that we can pull together very quickly, and we can train the individuals that the company or business needs to get trained. So that our communities have come to depend upon us, and they rely upon us. And so we like that relationship. We value that relationship, and look forward to even making that a stronger partnership as we go forward.
That's great. Yeah, it's interesting how it's because there are so many TCATs, there's so many communities that are impacted in different ways through the programs that you guys offer. To shift gears just a little bit, Cliff, I'm going to ask you, and I think for those of us that know how you already feel about this, but why should a student go to a TCAT?
I guess the real question is, why should they not? I mean,
Say that one more time, Cliff.
Absolutely. With a TCAT, I think what makes us different is, it's an opportunity to train with not only real world equipment. I mean, when somebody is in a TCAT, you're actually either making chips, you're wiring panels up, working with real voltage. You're actually cutting hair, and all of those different components of all these different of the trades we teach. But I think what makes it the best, in my opinion, is that the instructors are the single most subject matter specialists. TCAT instructors have to have been proficient in their trade. That's a requirement for employment. So, when you get somebody that's a TCAT instructor, they've already been a supervisor or a lead person of some sort or another, an individual that understands how to make people perform in a job function. And it's kind of cool is that they also have that ability to turn it around and teach that. And I think that's the thing with the TCAT, is just that ability, for a student to come in and have that accessibility to those kind of people. Because, you don't see that a lot. You see, in different kinds of academia, people maybe teach out of their majors and things, and that's not really what the TCATs do. So, and I mean, overall, you guys know, it's a cool place. We do a lot. It's a very directed training. You know what your day is like. You know when you're supposed to be here. You know what days you're going to be off. It's not like, you get a phone call in the middle of the night and somebody's saying, oh, well, we're moving this lecture to some other time. It's indicative of the workforce that you're entering. And it's that little unique caveat that just makes it what it is. And, like I said, when we talk about dad on what with Mike and Youlanda both were saying with the industry, I think that is one of the key parts that makes TCATs most successful. TCATs, every program has an advisory committee that these are comprised of people that are still in industry. So what there are feedback of say, for instance, and I'll give you an example, like in industrial maintenance, there was a time when everybody around this part of the country was all using Allen Bradley programmers. And then all of a sudden somebody introduces Siemens, they're using with a Siemens programmer, and then somebody else may use something else. Well, we take all that information because, it's counterproductive for us and sure counterproductive for a student to come here and only learn one area of something. So with a TCAT having all those little pieces come together, they leave here with a very good working knowledge of whatever trade that they're entering in. And, of course, my history being that's what he's alluding to. I'm TCAT guy. I was a graduate of this system years and years ago, back when we were still the state area vocational schools. So, I always say this, and it's a wonder it hadn't got me fired. But through all my continuing education I've ever had, I can honestly say that the one true beneficial education that I ever received was the one I got here many, many years ago, because I still know how to make parts. I can still machine to close tolerances. And if I lost this job today, I could go right back in a shop and pick up right where I left off. And I think that's the nuance. It's always going to be there. You're always going to have that. So it's something that never leaves. And I just think that's the big benefit for the students.
That's great, and exactly how I figured you would answer that. We had a student on. We had a student on yesterday from TCAT Crossville, actually, that Cliff was actually put us in touch with to serve on our current students panel. And it was the first time that a college president actually got a direct shout out from a student in one of these videos. She was talking specifically about how awesome Cliff was. So obviously excellent leadership happening in Crossville. Youlanda, I want to ask you, I was looking at some of the enrollment numbers at TCAT specifically and looked at TCAT Covington, and from year 1 to year 4, cohort 1 to cohort 4 of Tennessee Promise students, there was a 100% increase in enrollment. Tell me a little bit about what you've done in your communities. You serve 3 of them, so you've got a multi-pronged approach going on. Tell me a little bit about what you've done to attract students to your institutions, to find those new students.
Well, for us, it is all about strategically planning on how to recruit. We always look for ways for students to have access to funding, access to transportation, access to equipment needs, because in our area, especially in West Tennessee, you would be really surprised on the barriers our students face. So meeting those students where they are and then giving them the tools for them to be successful is what we really have to hone in on. So we give that special touch. We're living in a day of time of just technology, but for us, we have to give that special attention to our students. And some people may call it hand-holding, but if you don't really understand what going to college is, we're there to explain it to you. We add that personal touch that you're just not a name. You're a student that is there to succeed. And our job is to make sure that you do succeed, whatever it takes. And I think I speak for the Cliff and Mike as well. We have to do that for our students, because not just having a technical skill, but you have to learn things like worker ethics. You have to learn, we have to actually show them and how important it is for them to show up to a job on time and to be able to communicate and to work hard and to be committed and feel valued at the same time. So I think for us, especially during this time of a pandemic, technology has been very, very important to us, and as far as being able to be innovative. All of our programs were able to go into a hybrid model of instruction, which included not only the technical in-person side, but also a virtual side and a simulation side. So we just need to be able to, and I think that's what we can do very well, is to adjust and adapt to our situations for our students to make sure they're successful. So we were redeveloped, and now I think we're much even stronger than we were before the pandemic.
It's almost like the TCATs were already positioned to go through something as dramatic as the last 8 months, right? So TCATs always are able to, it seems like, always to meet the needs. So taking that maybe a step further, I'll just ask all three of you, whoever wants to chime in on this can, what impact has Tennessee Achieves and Tennessee Promise had? We're celebrating the 100,000th enrolled student today. So what impact have we had on, and what has Tennessee Promise had on those enrollment increases? Not only has Youlanda seen an increase, Mike and Cliff, you too. So tell us a little bit about the role that Tennessee Achieves and Tennessee Promise have had.
Let me jump in just a minute. What's exciting to me is that, you know, we're in our 7th year with Tennessee Promise, and it's still making an impact. If you go back and look at the data and the charts and the graphs, and you saw that climb from 2014, it's still climbing, and we're still seeing that impact. So that's exciting. That's exciting for us. According to some TBR research, I looked at 2,000 new Tennessee Promise students enroll at TCATs each year. And so that's exciting. For Pulaski, for the last academic year, we had 47 students that used Promise. Now, there were more that were eligible for Promise, but they didn't need it. But 47 students, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking adult enrollment of 250, 260, that's about 20% of our enrollment. And so the exciting thing for us is that Tennessee Promise has, for some people, has eliminated some barriers. It's made it possible for people for students that would have never have gone to college to go to college, for them to be the first persons in their families to go to college and come out with a post-secondary credential. So we're excited that it's still around and hoping it's around for a very long time.
Me too.
I can kind of piggyback on what Mike said. With me, I just love stuff that is game changers. And Tennessee Achieves and everything that it has done, you know, the excuses are no longer there. And I just love that component of that. When you know, back years ago, you'd run into people, well, why did you come on to school? Or why did you, and they would always, well, you know, I didn't have the money. That's gone. That excuse now for that's out. And what is so cool about what we do at the TCATs, you know, for years and years, we sort of always had that adult who had, for some reason or another, just woke up one day and decided they needed to change something in their life. And, you know, and that was all well and good. And that's what we're here to do. But what's so neat that I'm seeing on this campus, and like I said, I've been around it a long time, is the demographic. So now we're getting all that, and that is directly related to Tennessee Achieves and all the mentoring and everything that goes along with that. You're seeing a younger crowd, a lot younger student. And, you know, obviously it's changing some of the ways we do things, but what gets me in our mission is, like, you know, we're getting these people right out of the gate now. You know, they're coming right out of high school and, you know, they're hitting the ground running. So the hope is, and like I said, we're already seeing this, is they're not going to see that lag anymore. That's just going away. And I just love that. They're just, you know, everybody is just started right out of high school and just you start down a good path. And I just love that about Tennessee Achieves.
And Cliff, I would also add that, you know, Tennessee Achieves has added a value to the TCATs that may have been affected by the stigma that was there in the past, that if you went to a technical college or vocational college, you were not going to a real college. But Tennessee Achieve helped us, basically giving that definition a new frame. It says you are going to a real college, and the outcomes can be even greater by attending a technical college compared to a college, a community college, or a university.
Well, I totally agree. And I know that some of you have served as Tennessee Achieves mentors, and on the call, I'd say most of our attendees are mentors, and a lot of them, some of them are new to Tennessee. Some of them have been here for a long time, are still learning about the post-secondary options in Tennessee. What advice would you give to a Tennessee Achieves mentor as they're helping their students make that choice? As we know, most of the students decide sometime in the spring of their senior year as they're making those decisions. What advice would you give to a mentor about TCATs, and how would you advise that they help those students make those decisions?
Well, I think Youlanda hit it on the head. And that is the thing. Being a mentor is all about helping someone change and someone change for the better. And when you have a mentor that tells all the mentees the options and things, and then they can bring up a TCAT and they can tell them how short our programs are and how the ease of entry into the programs are, and that we do, in a sense, we do the hand holding. That's what we've always done, and we're going to continue to do that. And it also, good mentors will actually do the data, and they'll break it down and show where you have welders that come out as welder helpers out of some of these programs, that are making $65,000, $70,000 a year debt free with 1 year of education, and in some cases less than that. And that goes for almost every trade we teach, and it's cool when a mentor will step out of that traditional academia road that's saying that's the only path, and bring up what we do. And I'll say this, we have a very, very good group of mentors over in our area. They, of course, they do a great job with our community college as well. But, we have the tours, and you see that, and I just love that interaction. So, it just do the homework. If any mentor out there is listening, if you've done this for years, or if you're brand new, heck, pick up a phone, call one of us, call any TCAT president, and just ask. We'll tell you what the job scope is. You can talk to instructors. You can come by the campus and visit instructors. You can audit the classes. I mean, it's wide open for a mentor to help that person make the best decisions.
Yeah, I was going to add to that, and what Cliff just said. I mean, our doors are open, although some modifications right now. Yeah, they're open, but we'll make you think differently. But come see us. If you want to know more about us, come see us. Encourage the students that you're mentoring to come check us out. As Cliff said, do some homework. We want students to make a very informed decision. So,
yeah, that's great. I agree.
And I would just,
you go ahead, Youlanda. Absolutely, go right ahead.
No, I would just add that when I first became a mentor, I was really nervous about being able to be really active at all times. But I would say to the new mentors, just make it personal. Just caring enough, and being, not that you have to know everything, because you have partners that will help you understand the specifics, but just caring enough to support them during this process is what I had to learn. That's really what they needed. So mentoring, A+.
Hey, I couldn't agree more. And during mentor trainings, I will almost always leave at the end saying, go visit your TCAT. Go take a tour, because you don't know what's going on behind the doors until you go. And for a lot of people, I can see it every time I go to TCAT Crossville with Cliff, and we have 30 or 40 mentors show up for breakfast, and we go on a tour. By the time we leave, their eyes are opened and they're blown away by what's actually going on at TCAT. So go visit. If you're listening now and you've never been, once you can, go visit. I think it's worth it. So let's shift gears again just a little bit and talk more about community relations, employer relations. I know that a lot of TCAT offerings, we've mentioned this a little bit already, are dictated by industry needs. Mike, I want you to talk a little bit about what those conversations look like. How would a TCAT go from a conversation with, we'll use Nissan as an example. If Nissan needs a particular need filled, how does that conversation work on your end?
Sure. Many times those industries will, they'll reach directly out to us to see if we have existing programs that meet their needs. And if not, then certainly we'll work with them to identify what their needs are and then develop a training program that will meet those needs. A lot of times those conversations happen through our partnerships with our economic and community development folks. We have very strong relationships with them. And so many times we are at the table or at meetings for prospective new industries that may be looking at locating to the area. In addition, Cliff mentioned each of our programs earlier. They have advisory committees that help us to oversee our programs. It's not just the president and the instructor that's driving the decisions or making the decisions that drive our program. We've got advisory committees composed of industry and business folks that that employ our graduates, and so they have input as well. And so they're helping. They're giving us conversation about curriculum, about equipment, talking. It's amazing the relationships that our instructors have with all of these folks. Many times I've heard many of our instructors say, they'll call up, a company will call up and say, I need some people. Who do you have? But that it works by the same token, it works as far as training needs as well. They'll call us and say, we need this. Can y'all do this? And we make a few phone calls, get a few heads together and hammer it out and put something together for them. So we've got each of our TCATs will do that special industry training. And on some of our campuses, we've got some folks, some staff members that's what they do. They're a special industry training coordinator. And so many times those conversations happen, they start there with that person and then they trickle through the instructors and through me. So it's multiple conversations, multiple ways that we get the word out about what we can do for our communities.
I appreciate you digging into that. That's actually really interesting and answered my question well. As you all know, the Drive to 55 was the governor's goal, Governor Haslam's goal to have 55% of Tennesseans with some sort of post-secondary credential by 2025. That's 5 years from now. And we're on pace to do that. And I would say in large part because of TCATs. And I wanted to ask all of you, what role do you see TCAT playing over the next 5 years in terms of economic development and workforce development in Tennessee? What role does TCAT play and how does it continue to grow and change? And obviously change is a big part of what TCAT can do. What's that look like? Whoever wants to go first can dive right in on that.
Well, I say, the thing with Tennessee, Governor Lee and the entire ECD staff, anyone that has anything to do with recruiting industry to Tennessee, they're very aware of the TCATs and the community colleges, and they market our students in a sense, and even the local chambers do. I think it's kind of cool when you sit in a lot of those meetings. They'll market us and they don't know one of us. They may not know a student from a student, but they all seem to have a good working knowledge of what the TCATs do currently, the community colleges as well, and what we can do and how quick we can mobilize and make things happen. So, I'm going to say this, when you put all of that groups together, all the way from the governor's office, all the way down to the education, in 5 years, look where Tennessee was, let's go back 30 years ago, before Nissan, maybe a little bit further than that now, but, and look what's happened since then with Volkswagen and the additions of Nissan, the Decker plant, all of those sorts of things. So, it's just, I think that Tennessee is in such a strategic spot and they have such a great marketing, obviously lower taxes, things like that. All that plays right into being feeders for students at the TCATs to be trained for those industries that are yet to come. So, I definitely see us being a huge contributor. And, quite frankly, we always have. It's just, I don't think we were as well known back in years ago as what we are now. So yeah, definitely. I think we're definitely going to be a contributor.
Well, I think it goes back to what I said earlier. Our communities and the state as well, they depend upon us. They know they can. We've proven ourselves. And so I think they're going to continue to expect that, and we're going to continue to meet that expectation and helping our state to grow and meet all of our training needs. So it's been, since I left secondary ed 5 years ago, came to post-secondary on the technical side. And so it's been exciting. It's been all 5 years. It's just been an exciting time to be in the technical education arena.
And I will end by saying, I think we will always continue to stay connected with existing and potential employers. I feel that we are the pipeline for training the workforce, because our jobs are to listen, to develop the curriculum, to meet the high demand jobs in those fields. And we train and equip our students for central high demand jobs. So I think our mission in itself will continue to make us very relevant in the upcoming years.
Yeah, I fully believe that, and I'm behind you 100%. The last question I'll ask, and this one's sort of practical in a way, but if you had a student coming to you today and they said, what program should I study? If they had no idea what was the need in their community, I would say that a lot of people don't know what a high demand job is in their area right now. What direction would you point a student in? What's the most high demand job right now in your community, and how is TCAT serving that?
Well, for us, it's industrial maintenance, along with practical nursing, along with welding, and I can continue, but Cliff, Mike, what are your high demand jobs?
Ours are across the TCAT system. When I was looking at some stats yesterday for another presentation I was involved in, and I echo what Youlanda says. It's interesting how very similarly across the state, welding was the number 2. I forgot what number 1 was now because it wasn't at Pulaski. Welding is number 1 at Pulaski. We have a great need for welders in our area. And so, and we have a large enrollment in both our day and evening welding programs. So, folks that are interested in that, I'm going to direct them to that. But one of the things I would tell a student that doesn't know exactly where they want to go is, to borrow Cliff's phrase again, do your homework. Do some homework before you make a decision. What do you like to do? Who do you know that does something that you might be interested in? And if you do, go watch them, go job shadow them, go visit them, talk to them, learn more about it. And then come visit the colleges, go visit the places where you can get that training and that post-secondary education. Talk to those instructors, look at that equipment. Those students are making an investment in their future. It's in most cases it's 12 months, but it's an investment. And so you want to make a wise investment. And so I would just say, do that homework so that you can make the best informed decision that you can. Does not cost anything to ask questions.
I think that's great advice. I'd like to remind those that are watching, go ahead and get your questions in. We'll take some questions from the audience in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. You can type those in there, and Graham will hop on here in just a little bit, and he'll give those to the panel. Looks like we may have lost Cliff. He just texted me and said he lost us, so I think he's going to try to hop back on. But for the sake of time, we'll move into our final 2 questions. So we ask every panel the same last two questions, and I think they're really informative. The first one is, what's a lesson you learned at your first job? And when I say first job, I mean your real first job. So my first job was making pizzas at Mr. Gaddy's. I did that for 4 years. I made a lot of pizzas and cleaned a lot of toilets. So Tell us what's a lesson that you learned from your first job that you carry with you today.
Ladies first, Youlanda.
Okay. The truth is out. My very first job, I worked at a movie theater in Dyersburg, Tennessee. And I left that job learning more about work ethics than I had ever done before, because in that one job, although it was small to me, I built communication skills. I learned the importance of the value of my job and how it impacted the overall outcomes of the movie theater. I sold popcorn and I didn't have a cash register. I learned how to calculate and add in my head. I don't know if anybody does that anymore, but that's where I learned how to do that. But it was all about feeling important and being able to treat people like I wanted to be treated. So customer service and being able to communicate and relate, I learned all of that from working at a movie theater back in the, I'm not gonna say the year, but it was a long time ago.
Well, and to tag along with that, in my first real job, one of the things I learned is it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. So I had to dig my heels in, had to work harder, had to work longer than what I thought was going to be required. And to echo Youlanda, I learned a lot about work ethics and how a strong work ethic makes a huge impression. I may not have been doing the job the best or as good as someone else, or maybe as the person before me, but I worked hard at it. I showed up on time every day. I had a great attitude about it. I was a team player. I worked well with others, and that made an impression. And so those skills, again, Youlanda, we talk about how long ago that was. It does seem just like the other day, but let's face it, that was not the case. But those skills that both Youlanda and I are talking about, those are not outdated. Those work ethic skills are not outdated, and those are lessons that those are skills that anyone can use today. So the other thing I learned was that my first job wasn't going to be even though it wasn't going to be my forever job, I treated it as if it was. I gave it my best effort every day. And that's what I think we all have to do, no matter what we do. Cliff's back.
Yeah, Cliff's back. So I just asked the group, what's
Cliff.
a lesson that you learned in your first job that has stuck with you today? And when I say first job, I mean your real first job, not your first professional job.
And sorry about that. We've got some construction going on a new addition of the campus, and they did something. But anyway, we're back up.
No problem.
So I think most of you that's been around me at any time, I like to talk a lot. My first job taught me how to shut up and listen. And that was very, very instrumental, especially later on when I entered the professional, and for sure when I became an instructor for several years, is having that, just being able to take time out from what you're wanting to express and listen to what somebody is thinking. And, I think that made me so much better, especially when I was still, in the automation assembly world, but for sure when I came back here as an instructor, is having that ability to just sit back and kind of analyze what somebody is actually saying and what they're actually meaning, and then sort of compress all that into a way to turn around and teach it. So, that was it. Was just bluntly just sit back and listen for a minute. And then of course, I still do that, but I still talk a lot too, but I think that did stick with me, especially on the education side, I'll have to say.
A lesson I'm learning daily, that one. Last question I'll ask, and then Graham will pop on, and I think we have a few actually from the audience, but this one's pretty easy and should be simple for you guys. But what's one piece of advice that you would have for the next 100,000 students? Youlanda, if you want to go first, you go right ahead.
What piece of advice? Say it one more time.
what is one piece of advice that you would have and give to the next 100,000 Tennessee Achieves students?
Well, I think the piece of advice that I would give them would be, like everyone said today, do your homework. The decision you're getting ready to make is very, very important. I would ask that if your mind is not made up, that you do consider a TCAT. Because I think right now, if your option is going to college and you want a good career and a good path to be on for not only a job, but for a career, I would ask that you consider a TCAT, because we have so much to offer. So if you're looking at options, I would say consider a TCAT.
Great advice. Mike, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, we'll save Cliff for last. And actually, I basically gave that answer earlier, Ben, and I echoed again what Youlanda said with doing their homework. It is a huge decision that students are making, and so go by and visit the colleges, whether it's a technical college, community college. One of the things, and I know I don't want to, I'm not trying to do a sales pitch for TCATs necessarily, but yes, we are. Something that has been mentioned when you ask Cliff the question, why not go to a TCAT? It has always amazed me, and it really made an impression upon me, the first graduation ceremony that I participated in at TCAT Pulaski, the relationships that our students build with their instructors. And they're spending 6 hours a day every week and for a year or more with these instructors, and to see that relationship culminate at graduation and hear the comments they make to each other when they walk across that stage, and then to also know that, I mean, they've gained a resource, and we have students that are calling instructors that graduated years ago, just calling back for, hey, I need to bounce something off of you. What about this, or what about this situation? So it's an incredible opportunity. Not only are you getting amazing training, but you're building these relationships that are going to last a lifetime. It was very, it just made me feel good as president of the school when I heard students over the last few years at graduation say, Mr. Whitehead, I don't want to leave. I love it here. And
Yes.
not only did they like their training, but we try to make it a good experience. They're there for 12 months. It's an intense 12 months or 16 months or 20 months, but we try to do things that they're not coming just 6 hours a day like a job and pounding the concrete. And we do things that make their experience a good experience. And when they tell me that they don't want to leave or they're going to come back and re-enroll in a second program, makes me feel really good. And so you have some opportunities. So there, it may not be a good fit for every student, but check it out. Again, as I said, it does not cost anything to ask questions. And we love to have you on campus checking things out.
I think for me, for the next 100,000 students, is to understand that when people are trying to give you advice, that they are not always critiquing you, that they are trying to help you. And at the same token, don't feed into anybody's negativity. When you decide on a path and you figure out this is what you want to do, that's what you're going to be the most successful is. And for sure, when you come to a TCAT, you're only here a short while. Get in here and get the biggest bang for the dollar. Get that education and get out and go make yourself a prosperous individual. And I'll guarantee you that those same people that were constantly negative are still going to be in the same boat they were from the first time you met them. So I guess that's my biggest thing is understand that critique sometimes is a positive thing, and don't feed into negativity.
I think that's great. I really appreciate y'all for giving us that feedback, and I think that's all really good advice for the next 100,000 students. Graham, do we have any questions from the audience?
We do. We've got a few questions from the audience. The first is from Marv, who's the chairman of a large construction company in Knoxville. He's been a longtime mentor with us in Granger County. He said the construction industry is in great need for skilled employees. To date, we've only seen some limited electrical and welding programs offered. What can we do to get more carpentry, concrete, construction labor, earthwork, and superintendent type courses offered?
Well, I'll start with this. We have those courses here. We have expanded, and that gentleman is exactly correct. For years and years, we just taught building construction technology, which focuses mainly on residential and entry level commercial. But we have expanded that program to also include the plumbing, the residential electricity side of that. And now we're jumping out on a limb and trying to bring masonry back. So, and he is exactly right in what he's saying. It is just so hard to find people that want to go into those trades. And I think this goes back to the mentors. I'll just put it bluntly. There is nothing in the world wrong with swinging a hammer all day. You would not believe what some of these framing crews and things around our areas pay these students. And with TCATs, we're so cool that we have things like our cooperative programs where a student can enroll. And, after a period of time where we feel like that they've got enough knowledge that they can go out on a crew, these framing crews will snatch these students up before they're ever even finished these programs. And the same way on the residential electricity, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, plumbing, all those. So as far as us, you are exactly right. I wished we had the money to expand that into, 3 or 4 more programs just like it. I know we wouldn't have any problem at all of having students to go in these and to help supply that industry. But I think that some of that comes right back to the local demand. I think that TCATs, if people communicate enough to a TCAT president for a needs base like that, it's not beyond us to figure out a way to make it happen in some way, shape, or form, even if we're making it happen with just that company. The program may never even take place on the campus. It may take place with them. And mentors need to be aware of those things as well, is to push those trades. Those are great paying jobs. And they're very, very secure jobs. Especially over here where we're at. It's a housing boom in this area. So, just like Mike and Youlanda, all of us was saying, just reach out to the local TCAT president and just, say, hey, this is what we need, prove it. And, if we can do it, we'll start it.
And I will add, especially in West Tennessee, all of my institutions used to offer those programs, but when the recession hit, because we have to place our students when they leave, those programs slowly closed. But now there's been a huge influx of construction, residential and commercial both. So you should see those programs coming back even stronger and more, like Cliff said, adding things that are needed. So I do agree that some of the institutions do not have those programs, but we will definitely consider adding those programs in the future if there is a demand for those programs in our area.
Youlanda, I meant to let you know as we were kicking off the questions from the audience here, you've got a TCAT Covington grad singing your praises here in the comments. So talking about how it was or his, I can't remember who it was.
Thank you so much.
We had another question from an attendee named Kenrick, who asked, what is the TCAT's role in assisting students in job placement as they're graduating?
Well, we have all of our programs are held to certain benchmarks with our accreditation agency, Council on Occupational Education, and completion, placement, and licensure. And so it's part of our responsibility, and it's part of, that's where those great relationships that our instructors have with our local communities, with the industries and the businesses in our communities and our regions. It's part of their responsibility to help place. They have to meet those placement benchmarks. And so they know not only are they going to be held accountable, but they want to help these students find jobs. Many times, the industries are waiting. They say, I need 5 people tomorrow. And so they're waiting for folks to get out of the program. And so it's placement usually is not a problem with our students. So it's a great relationship.
We have another
I
question.
think that's one of the things that sets us apart is that students just don't come to TCATs and leave and they're on their own. We have that connection and that responsibility that when students leave, to finding them not only jobs, but jobs in their selected field.
Great, appreciate both of your insights into that. We have another question here from Dr. Channing, who's asking, how do you recommend that mentors handle situations with students that might be on a wait list?
Hello, Dr. Channing. I'm betting that was almost, you probably saw me here. Dr. Channing, she's awesome. I tell you, that is a tough thing to handle, that when a student is wanting to start. And I ran into that many times with this, and that is the one single problem with a lot of TCATs with high demand programs. Those you're going to run into that. What we generally try to do in those situations, well, let me say what I try to do as being a longtime mentor. What we'll send students, it's sort of almost, I hate to use the word diversionary, but it's almost a way that I'll tell them, say, well, how about you go over to this fab shop, or you go over to this shop that does a lot of welding, or go out to these guys that are doing, say, like the pipeline prep and stuff. I'll set up those times with those different industries and allow the students to go. And it's sort of something it's either going to do one or two things. It's still going to keep their interest and it's going to get greater, or they're going to decide, hey, maybe this is just really not for me. So it is a tough thing to kind of manage that. The other thing is we always encourage them that the wait list is something that's an ever-changing daily document. Gosh, you can have a wait list that's 30 deep. And when our student services personnel, and they are the backbone of the TCATs as far as enrollment, they start calling these students in, hey, are you ready to start on this date or this date? Life happens. Not everybody is going to be able to start on the day that they originally thought. So those people will be moved to the list, and it's not uncommon at all. And we see this quite often for a student that was say, like I said, 30th on the list, that after 2-3 weeks of calling students in, because we enroll weekly, heck, they may be the 15th on the list. So what you do with that is you're constantly letting those student know, well, now this is where you were, but here's where you at today, and you just kind of let them stay the course and push them toward doing a lot of research and things on that, on that given trade. And it does generally help a little bit to kind of get that antsiness about starting up, but it is a tough thing to do. I don't know if you guys have done anything outside of that. I'd like to know.
No, we basically manage it the same way, Cliff. And at Pulaski, until recently, we've not had to deal with a lot of wait lists. We've been able to, it balances well. We keep the programs full, but we haven't had a long wait list. I'd like to have that long wait list, but then, as you said, you have to deal with that problem and that frustration. Currently, welding and maybe HVAC are our only 2 programs that have wait lists, and it's a short wait list. So we're hoping we can get folks in there. And that's the other thing, as Cliff said, that list changes. So if you can encourage those students, keep checking back. It may change. It may be sooner than you think. Somebody may finish early. Somebody may go ahead and get a job, and then there's an opening. So that's the only way we know how to handle it at this time.
Dr. Channing, I hope I answered that.
She gave you a yay Cliff in there, so or maybe he, I'm not sure. But I'm going to ask you guys one final question, and then I'm going to kick it back over to Ben to wrap us up. And Mike, it's specifically a conversation that you and I had at the mentor breakfast this February, when we could all still get together in person for events. I remember you and I had a conversation. You had said that when Tennessee Promise was announced, that there was maybe some concern, and this is true across TCATs, community colleges, that students that were using Tennessee Promise may not be as prepared, or maybe don't have as much skin in the game, and that maybe would lead to lower graduation rates. And it looks like the opposite is happening. So what kind of effect have you seen? I know one of you mentioned earlier that kind of the demographics of your students have shifted younger, but in terms of how prepared students are and their success once they get there, what have you seen from the students that are on Tennessee Promise? And I'm going to thank you all again and let Ben close this out.
Yeah, it's still a concern because we do still have some students, as I told you then, that they don't have skin in the game necessarily because they're getting their tuition paid for through Tennessee Promise, and so they may want to just try it out, and then they realize this isn't for me, and that's where I go back to encouraging doing the homework on the front end, so that way you can make an informed decision, and you. As Cliff said, he might direct a student to go work someplace in this setting that they think they want to work in, and if you may make the decision that it's not for me. So do that homework on the front end. But the other piece of that is our instructors play a very valuable role in dealing with that. They have those relationships with students that they're mentors themselves. They might not be on the official mentor list, but they are mentors to these students. And so they're helping with retention. Some of our colleges have hired retention coaches. We don't have one per se at Pulaski. We use our instructors as that. But everybody really has a role there on our campus is to help to retain those students, especially the young ones that may not be certain if this is for them or not. But it's our completion rates are we're still meeting our benchmarks. Our completion rates are actually well above benchmarks. So it's working. So
I totally agree, and all three leaders are doing a great job. I think when you see the data and you see, Youlanda told me before we started that TCAT enrollment is up 3% across the board. Given all of the circumstances, I think that's incredible. I think it's certainly a testament to how you guys not only are working hard, but are also connecting with your communities in ways where we're being able to tell that TCAT story more and more. And I can assure you that when I'm in communities, the first thing out of my mouth is go see your TCAT. I almost consider myself a TCAT evangelist in a way, if you will. But I really appreciate you all for taking your time and being with us for an hour today. I know that it was in the afternoon, and certainly appreciate that. And I know that all of our mentors certainly appreciate the insight. And I hope you guys have a great day. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
Just
Thank
thank you
you for
all
having
for
us.
what you do. Just thank you so much. You guys do great work. Absolutely. And when you talk about unjust servants, you guys don't get enough recognition. We know that. You don't, but you do an awesome job. Absolutely awesome.
Thanks, Cliff. I really appreciate that.
appreciate the opportunity, Ben.
Definitely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, you guys have a great rest of your week.
All right, you
All
too.
right. Thank you.